This week on The Beit Din.
We adopted Jeremy when he was 2 weeks old. And so we've raised him as a Jew since he was 2 weeks old.
One must be of the Jewish faith, which is defined as one who is born of a Jewish mother or who has undergone a conversion according to Jewish law.
I have never been anything but a Jew. I've been raised as a Jew, and I feel that Judaism is not about what blood runs in your veins, but in your spirit and in your heart.
The Beit Din, the Jewish court of law, is a rabbinical court that functions on behalf of those who voluntarily come before it for religious adjudication of civil issues. It thrives today as a court of arbitration, whose decisions are generally upheld by the civil courts of our land. Welcome to the Beit Din, the court of the Jewish people. In this case, before the Beit Din, Jeremy Klein, a member of the youth group, who was adopted, is running for president of his congregational youth group. Another member, Debbie Steinberg, claims that Jeremy doesn't have the right to run for president as he was adopted from parents who were themselves not Jewish. Jeremy says that he had become a bar mitzvah at a conservative synagogue that he and his family had belonged to in another city, and comes before the Beit Din with his mother, Mrs. Klein, claiming his rights to run for president. At the same time, Debbie Steinberg appears with Mr. Rabin, who is the synagogue president, confronting Jeremy and challenging his right to run for president of the congregational youth group. The case of the perplexing presidency. Sitting on the Beit Din today are Rabbi Moses Meshaloff, Dayan, Rabbi Mordecai Simon, of Beit Din, and Rabbi Robert Marks, Dayan.
Mrs. Klein, in order to establish some background to this particular case and the situation which you present to the Beit Din, could you give us a little bit of information on the occasion of the adoption of your son Jeremy? At what age was he adopted?
Well, we adopted Jeremy when he was 2 weeks old. And so we've raised him as a Jew since he was 2 weeks old.
At no time, though, did anyone ever suggest to you, or was it proposed that there might be a religious adoptive procedure that would have to be followed in terms of introducing him into the Jewish faith? No ceremonies of adoption?
No. At the time of his birth, we weren't sure that we were going to be able to get him because his mother had changed her mind at the last moment. And then when he was 2 weeks old, she suddenly changed her mind back again and said she would put him up for adoption. And so we were so excited and elated that we knew that he had already gone through circumcision, and the idea of a bris and so forth never entered our minds. We just took him and ran.
And then when you came, after time elapsed, and you entered him into the nursery school, religious school,
Yes.
and no one ever challenged or questioned, and you never came forward with the information
No.
that Jeremy was adopted or had not gone through this procedure.
No. Mm-mm.
And so he entered into a preparation for his bar mitzvah, and he was bar mitzvah in
Yes.
in the congregation without any challenge ever being issued to. And it never dawned on
No.
you or your husband to
It never did.
to bring this to the attention of the rabbi or the principal of the school or
No.
anyone?
No, it never did. We brought him up as a Jewish boy. He went to Sunday school and Hebrew school. In fact, I probably ought to be ashamed to say this, but he's probably more of a Jew than I am. He encouraged me to keep kosher, whereas I hadn't done that before. And I learned more about the Jewish heritage through him when he began school and going through all the Sunday school classes. It enriched my life as well. So, but it never came up. To go back to your question, it had never come up.
Could I ask Jeremy, did you ever suggest to your parents the possibility that maybe there was still a phase or facet in your life that had to be completed to officially welcome you into the Jewish faith? Did you ever wonder to yourself?
No, I didn't, because I have never been anything but a Jew. I've been raised as a Jew, and I feel that Judaism is not about what blood runs in your veins, but in your spirit and in your heart. So no, sir, I did not.
Rabbi Meshaloff?
Mr. Rabin, can you tell me, this club that they're vying for? What sort of a club is it?
It's a USY group, Rabbi.
Do you have any non-Jewish children in it?
No. According to the bylaws of our Constitution, in order to be a member of our congregation, in order to be a member of any of our affiliates, one must be of the Jewish faith, which is defined as one who is born of a Jewish mother or who has undergone a conversion according to Jewish law.
Debbie, why did you bring up this matter of his Jewishness?
Well, Rabbi, I do feel that Jeremy would make a good president of USY, but I also feel that you should be Jewish to run for this youth group. I think that's one of the most important things, because this is a youth group that we have for the Jewish children of our community.
How did you know that he wasn't Jewish?
I found out a few of my friends were talking to Jeremy, and they had brought up some issue that they had read about in the newspaper of an adoption, and I am imagining that Jeremy told them that he was adopted.
Jeremy, did you ever have this question brought up before? Did anybody else ever talk to you and say, look, Jeremy, you're not really a Jew? Did you have any embarrassment or difficulty on account of that?
Not at all.
You never did. Nobody bothered about that before.
Never.
Well, just one other question, Jeremy. If your mother tells me that you've had a big influence on the whole family, you've turned them to be kosher because you realize that Jews have responsibilities. If you were to be told that conversion is a necessity, formal conversion, how would you react to that?
If a conversion is the only way I can prove myself to be a true Jew, then I have no choice but to do that. And I feel that this was brought up because of the elections and not because of how she feels, actually, because I think she's bringing this up. She's questioning my faith in order to use it as propaganda for the election, and not because this is what she truly believes, because this would have been brought up a long time ago.
Yes, I have some questions for Mr. Rabin and for Jeremy as well. Mr. Rabin, you said before your synagogue has a policy of not accepting non-Jews as members of the congregation. Are there products of mixed marriages in your congregation? Are there Jews married to non-Jews who belong to your congregation?
Yes, Rabbi, but the non-Jewish member of that family would not be considered a member of the congregation.
How do you determine who is Jewish and who is non-Jewish? Do you depend upon the word of the person involved, or do you do any sort of an investigation?
Exactly, Rabbi. We depend on the word of the person involved. When a congregant becomes a member, there's a questionnaire that they fill out, and the question is asked, and we depend solely on the word of the individual who's applying for membership to the congregation.
If a non-Jewish spouse comes to services, a husband, let's say, of a Jewish lady, comes to services and participates over a number of years in the activities of the congregation, attends the sisterhood, if there is one in your congregation, and attends services regularly, would there be some pressures within the congregation at some time to ask the non-Jewish spouse to participate in the worship of the service, or would this be something you would very zealously guard against?
I think a fair answer to that question is that we do everything we can with that, under the sensitivity of the family, to encourage the non-Jewish spouse to learn about Judaism and hopefully eventually to undergo a conversion.
Let me press you a little bit about the sensitivity of the family. You're saying you are aware of the sensitivity of the family. What does that mean?
Well, we're certainly not going to force Judaism on someone who is opposed to becoming Jewish. So if the spouse who is not a member of the Jewish faith wants to attend services but doesn't want to participate fully as a Jew, we don't force our attention on them or force our desire for them to become Jewish.
Okay, now I have one question for Jeremy. When you received Debbie's challenge, or when you learned about Debbie's challenge, could you tell us a little bit about what feelings you had? How did you feel about this when you perceived the challenge to your presidency, to your candidacy for the presidency?
Well, I was shocked that this was brought up, And I feel betrayed that she would do this to me. I feel that I'm as good of a Jew as she is, and I feel insulted.
Could I ask Debbie, as well as Jeremy, the fact that the two of you are candidates for the highest position within your USY chapter indicates that you have the confidence, at least a portion of the membership, that you are, indeed, would be the best candidate to lead the chapter in the coming year. And in order to achieve that respect from your colleagues, your peers, obviously you both have had to work very diligently and very conscientiously to earn the right to challenge for that position. Now, you both have worked together, assumedly, in the chapter. Why, Debbie, are you accepted Jeremy's services up until now, his input, his involvement, and now suddenly you say, wait a minute, you have no right to be there, because by definition, the membership in USY and in this carrying it into the synagogue says that members of the Jewish faith, membership is open to members of the Jewish faith, and now you're challenging him. Up until this time, you haven't.
Well, I've always taken pride in being Jewish, and Jeremy and I have been friends for quite a while. I've taken pride in the fact that I have been a member of USY for many years, whereas Jeremy has just moved here. I have enjoyed working with him. I think it's just now that the question of my believing that he is not fully Jewish that has just brought this question up.
So you're trying to, in a sense, protect the Constitution of the USY?
Yes.
And
May I ask whether Jeremy has occupied any other office within the youth group
No, I
prior to
haven't.
his candidacy for the presidency?
No, I haven't.
but obviously you were chairman. You had to take a leading role somewhere along the line to.
Well, as soon as I moved here, I became intently involved in the youth group. I've become very interested. I've done a lot of work on the side. I haven't just, gone there for just different things, for meeting people. I feel that this youth group is very helpful because it helped me find my place in this community, and I just want to become a part of it.
Mrs. Klein, do you have any other children?
No, Rabbi.
None. Your husband is not here. Why?
Well, he's a professional man, and he wasn't able to, he's a doctor, and he couldn't change his appointments to get here today.
Now, of course, this is a very tremendously important matter to both Debbie and to Jeremy, but you and I know that this is not the most important problem in the world, presidency of an organization, but that this problem reaches way beyond the presidency. Jeremy may find later on that this, which is now bruited about, is a problem. He may find later on, your conservative members, that the rabbi may not want to marry him off to a Jewish girl. What is your objection to having him converted now?
Well, we just felt he was raised as a Jew, and at heart, he's a Jew. And I guess the idea of marriage in the future hadn't come up yet. We hadn't really dealt with that. He's only 15. But we would go by whatever you rabbis come up with today.
Along that line, Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
could you describe for us a little bit of the process of Jeremy's education, your decision? I'm interested in two areas particularly, your decision not to have a ritual circumcision, although you indicated there was a circumcision.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the education that your son received in the early stages, and also about his bar mitzvah here.
Well, he attended preschool at our synagogue, and of course, they introduce all the rituals and traditions of Judaism in the preschool, as you know.
So we started immediately.
Right, so like at 3 years of age. And from that point, of course, then he attended public school, but then he continued in the Sunday school classes at our synagogue, and continued when Hebrew school, when he was 8 years old, he began Hebrew school, and And he had always been a wonderful student. I mean, lots of parents, as you know, have problems getting their children to learn Hebrew and wanting to go to classes on Sunday, but he enjoyed it, and I was delighted with that. And then he was bar mitzvahed, and then he even continued after that with his education. So this kind of an issue never entered our minds, and it just really hit us, and we felt really, as Jeremy said before, insulted and resented this intrusion.
Debbie, could I ask you, if Jeremy were Jewish, there were no questions, would you have opposed him for this position, namely that I too have a right to run for presidency, and I'll match him on service to service, but
No,
then let the
Rabbi,
members...
I wouldn't have opposed.
So you recognize the service that he has given to the chapter. Have Jeremy and Mr. Rabin, has Jeremy ever participated in the services in the congregation?
Yes, Jeremy has participated in the service.
What impact upon the congregation, Mr. Rabin, if you could briefly tell us, would it have if Jeremy were elected president of the youth group?
Well, it would be a violation of our Constitution, so at this point it couldn't take place. I think that what we would like to do is encourage Jeremy to undergo a ritual conversion.
Well, I think at this point we now understand at least the details of the case that you were presenting to the Beth Din, and we would like to retire to consider the points that you have presented to us, and then we will return shortly with our verdict.
Let's join the rabbis in deliberation.
Gentlemen, the issue that has been presented to us is one of conversion, membership, and commitment, I guess, on the part of, and sincerity of both on the part of Jeremy, who is the practicing Jew, although he hasn't gone through the formalities of being converted to Judaism, and his challenge, Debbie, to that presidency, and I think also the president of the congregation, Mr. Rabin, who wants to protect himself. This is the Constitution. These are the bylaws of our congregation and our auxiliaries, and consequently, Jeremy, a nice kid, nice fellow, but he can't be a member of our organization.
I'll tell you something else. I think there's another factor involved, and that's junior politics. I think this Debbie bringing in this issue was working like a real politician. I don't know why that should have borne in on their race for the presidency if it weren't to get political advantage of an opposing candidate. As it is, it becomes a very serious matter. But bringing that up to me is a matter of politics, because in this particular case, she's been able to prove that according to the rules of this group, a non-Jew may not be a president. But you and I know that we living in this country live with people of all faiths, and we are not as exclusive as that, excepting where such things are required, that a non-Jew cannot be a president in an organization in which there are Jews. I think she was taking some undue advantage in this case.
Then you seem to be leaning in the direction of saying that the young man in this case, Jeremy, has a right to be president of the youth group, which is a position with which I would advocate.
No, I'm saying that he was very sincere and very earnest, and he did not allow this factor to be of embarrassing or insulting him, as he said. He felt that he was a Jew, though, according to the way I see it, he is not a Jew.
He had never been challenged up to this point, including the fact that he was given honors in the congregation, even by Mr. Rabin, the president, and Debbie herself testified that he's done a wonderful job, and she's never had any reason to challenge him up until such time. So maybe politics
but here,
may
as you
motivate
say,
it.
the question here is he, as required in this organization, is he a Jew or is he not a Jew?
I think there are two issues. I think that's one, the question of whether he is a Jew or not, an issue with which, on which I suspect we may disagree. The second question with which I don't think on which we're not going to disagree is the damage that will be done to this young man by the rejection of his candidacy for the presidency of his youth group on the basis of questions of his religious
I'm
commitment.
also concerned, this is an immediate problem because that's what we've been asked to adjudicate. I feel that in order to be Jewish, the classical interpretation, child of a Jewish mother or one who has been converted in accordance with Jewish law and tradition, which he has not been, and in order to alleviate the pressures upon him, and he and his mother did say if that's the alternative, yes, he will go through this procedure. I would suggest that he indeed do this, not only just to become, at least to become a candidate for the presidency of his group, but also beyond that, into the future, to eliminate this cloud that could hang over his head and cause complications in the future.
I tell you, I think that he's proud of his Jewishness. Right. And it's a matter of explaining to him what the real requirements are. I quote from Maimonides, person enters into the covenant of Israel by circumcision, by immersion in a mikveh, and then in the time that there was a temple bringing a special offering. These are the requirements. And if he were to be told that these are the formal requirements, he will be prouder of his being a Jew, having met those requirements, knowing now that in the face of the whole world there is no question about his being what he wants to be.
I, on the other hand, take the position based upon several of the poskim who suggest that a child who is brought up as an adopted child, brought up in a Jewish family, the young man did have a bar mitzvah, participated in all the ceremonies of the Jewish community, and I would take the stand in agreement with Sanhedrin, the Talmud Sanhedrin 19b, that one who is adopted as a Jew should be regarded as a Jew.
So I think, therefore, we agree on the principle, namely that one ought to be Jewish to be an officer in this particular organization. We disagree on the full definition, the fulfillment of this requirement. It appears that Rabbi Meshaloff and I are asking for formal conversion and then continuation, and you are saying that his commitment is already the act of being part of the Jewish community.
On the basis of my interpretation of Jewish law and the sensitivities of the young man, I will present a dissenting opinion.
And therefore, that's the way we will present that.
We now return to the courtroom to hear the rabbi's decision.
Jeremy and Debbie and Mr. Rabin and Mrs. Klein, we have considered the cases as it has been presented to us, and we have come to the following conclusion. Speaking on behalf of Rabbi Meshaloff and myself, that indeed there are standards to which the congregation adheres, those of the United Synagogue, and in this case the youth, United Synagogue Youth, the requirements of which say that a member, in order to be a member, one has to be of the Jewish faith, which is defined as being born of a Jewish mother or someone who has been converted in accordance with Jewish law and tradition. No one is challenging the tremendous commitment and involvement which you, Jeremy, and your mother have been involved, as well as both in your previous congregation as well as in this congregation. But in order to fulfill those requirements, and any organization, and in this case the Jewish faith, has set down these parameters. These are the rules under which one may be defined as a Jew. In order, and also as what we call an Eitzah Tova, as a good bit of advice to protect you for the immediate present as well as into the future, we are suggesting that indeed you go through the procedure of conversion in accordance with Jewish law and tradition, the symbolic hataf hadam, the mikvah, and then get right back into the involvement, even with more fervor, to continue the degree and involving of your family as well. And indeed, we feel that you will add great deal of glory both to the congregation and to your youth group. Rabbi Marks has a slight variation.
I have a responsibility to offer a dissenting opinion. In this case, it is clear, two things are clear. One is that Jeremy has been active in his synagogue and his youth group and has been bar mitzvahed and an active participant in the congregation. Secondly, it is clear that the synagogue has a rule that one who is not Jewish cannot be a member of the congregation. However, the issue for me in this case, and the issue that is unresolved, is what is the meaning of being Jewish? And here I think, from my point of view at least, Jeremy's bar mitzvah, his participation, his lifelong participation, the fact that he was brought up, albeit as an adoptive child in a Jewish home, amply qualifies him for the title Jewish. In addition, one has to wonder at the motives for bringing up this challenge at this particular time. And secondly, one has to be quite concerned about the sensitivities of a teenage boy running for office and facing this affront to his Judaism. And the idea of Klal Yisrael, the community of Israel, and the greater damage that might be done by denying him his challenge for the presidency of the youth group. On the basis of all these things, and because I feel that Jeremy has in every way qualified throughout his cognizant life as a Jew, I dissent and feel that he should be allowed to run by the synagogue, allowed to run for the presidency of his youth group.
I want to thank all of you for being here, and we commend you, Jeremy, and all of you. We look forward to an association leading to the enhancement, continued enhancement of our religious faith. Thank you.
And so, as the rabbis have brought their decision to the case of the perplexing presidency, let's review briefly what it is that happened in the case where Jeremy Klein ran for president of his congregational youth group, having been challenged by Debbie Steinberg, saying that Jeremy was not really Jewish, having been adopted from parents who themselves were not Jewish. You'll recall that the court reviewed questions of education and bar mitzvah and involvement in youth group, and Jeremy came through on all of those, saying that yes, indeed, he had gone through a substantial Jewish education. He had participated in his synagogue school, both religious and Hebrew programs, as well as having become a bar mitzvah during the course of his adolescence. Nevertheless, the decision of the court was that Jeremy, in order to fully be a part of the Jewish community and of the Jewish people, would need to convert. To convert according to Jewish law, which required both participation in the mikveh, that is, the ritual bath, as well as hatafat dam, a symbolic letting of a drop of blood to participate as well in Brit Milah, the covenant. In the course of this deliberation, there was a dissenting opinion saying that Jeremy's background, his experience, his devotion, and his clear commitment to Judaism certainly qualified him as a full and able member of the Jewish community. The synagogue president, though, rejected that notion and was upheld by the court in today's case that came before the Beit Din. In this case, we saw that adoption in and of itself, that the course of being raised as a Jewish child in and of itself was not sufficient, that there were strict laws that needed to be observed according to this ruling, dissent though there was, in the Beit Din, the court of the Jewish people.